What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2023 predictions. The Maryland Terrapins are up next, and here are some of the other predictions for Maryland. You see the FPI has them at 6.6 and 5.4. Athlon has them at 7 and 5. The over/under I saw at 7 and at 7.5. So right there, 7.5. That seems to be where they're at. So you could really say anywhere from 6 and 6, maybe up to 8 and 4 based off of these predictions. But 7 and 5 definitely seems to be the consensus here, the most likely record for Maryland. My thoughts on this team: I think offensively they're going to be really good, really explosive. A lot of playmakers around Taulia Tagovailoa. The offensive line looks to be strong as well. So this is going to be an offense that can score points, and I think that's a big reason why some people are really high on this team. I think there are people that are probably going to pick Maryland at maybe even 9 and 3 or 8 and 4. A lot of people say this should be a top 25 team preseason. So I think there's definitely reason for optimism for Maryland, but I am a little bit concerned about the defense, especially the front seven. Their defensive line does not appear to be very good at all, looking at what they have coming back there. Linebacker position, not great. Secondary looks to be okay. That's going to be the strength of the defense. But if you go up against a really good run team, I'm a little bit concerned about Maryland. So let's get into the schedule here. And they're going to play Virginia. That'll be their big non-conference game. That's good. I think that's one of the easier Power 5 opponents this year. Then you look at who they play out of the West. They're going to play Illinois at home, Northwestern on the road, and then also Nebraska on the road. So they don't play Wisconsin or Iowa. So it's a really favorable schedule, and you can see how potentially they could, if they lose to only Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, and they beat everyone else, which I think they absolutely have a chance in every other game they play, you can see how this team could get to 9 and 3. But a lot of tricky games here on the schedule. I do think they'll start with these first two games as wins. I don't really see any reason why they would struggle there. So I think they get off to a 2-0 start. Then they'll play Virginia on a weeknight game, so that'll be interesting, playing at home. Virginia's not going to have the firepower to keep up with Maryland. They're not going to have the run game to slow the game down, so I just don't think this is a good matchup. I think Maryland wins fairly easily, and so I think they get off to a 3-0 start before playing Michigan State on September 23rd. Interesting matchup here. Michigan State is going to be a team that is going to want to run the football. Now, they lose Peyton Thorne, so you wonder, are they going to have a passing game at all? Really no experience at quarterback. That concerns me. Michigan State, I think, will have a much better defense than Maryland, but will it be good enough to stop this high-powered offense? That'll be the question. Again, it'll be the run game for Michigan State. Can they run the football, control the clock, slow the game down? And then on the flip side, can Maryland score against this Michigan State defense, or how much can they score? I think this is a tough one to pick. I think Michigan State, even without Peyton Thorne, is still going to get a couple of pretty good wins this year, and they're playing at home. So I like the run game of Michigan State to get them the win here, and maybe a bit of an upset over Maryland, and knocking the Terps down to 3-1. Next up, they'll play Indiana on September the 30th. Should be a pretty good matchup here. I think Indiana's going to be a little bit improved this year from where they were last year, but not quite on the level of Maryland. I think the Terps playing at home will take care of business here. So I've got them beating Indiana. Then they get Ohio State on the road. This is going to be a tough one. I think Maryland will have an opportunity to score in this game and maybe turn into a shootout. But even in a shootout, I still think that favors Ohio State. They're as good as Maryland's offense is going to be. Ohio State's is going to be even better. And playing in Columbus, I just don't see how Maryland can win this game. I think Ohio State will win. Probably a lot of points. Maybe it's not a 30-point win for Ohio State, just because I think Maryland will score, but I think they will win by at least a couple of touchdowns. Then you get Illinois on October the 14th, and this is just a bad matchup for Maryland. You're going up a team that really likes to run the football, play good defense, be physical at the line of scrimmage. I think that's, again, a bad matchup for Maryland. Even playing at home, I think Illinois is able to slow this game down, run the football, and I think their defense will make some plays. So I've actually got Illinois going on the road and beating Maryland. And again, you're coming off of a loss to Ohio State. Could be beat up from that game. And this is going to be a tough spot here. So I've got Illinois beating Maryland. And then we get a bye week after that. I guess that's a pretty good spot for a bye week as you go down the stretch here with several tough games in the Big Ten. They get Northwestern on October the 28th. They will play them on the road. Northwestern is a tough team to figure out. We all know this team can come out of nowhere and win this division. I mean, or win the Big Ten West, I should say. We've seen it many times. And last year, I thought they actually were going to be pretty good, and they turned out to be awful. And so I don't really know what to make of this team. I think Maryland's offense should be good enough to win it, though. And so I'm going to go with Maryland to get this win and get to 5-3. Then they play Penn State on the 11th, or excuse me, on November the 4th, I should say, at home. And again, this is just a really bad matchup. We're talking about a Penn State team that's going to be more talented. It's going to be really good at running the football. It's going to have a really good defense. I don't think this game will be close at all. I think Maryland will struggle here in this one. I think Penn State gets the win and, again, wins that one fairly easily. Then you get Nebraska on November 11th on the road. This is an interesting matchup here. This is going to be a big game. I think it's a big game for both programs, both teams this year, one that both teams really need to win. Nebraska's a team that's going to have, they're going to have some question marks. They're going to have a pretty good defense, so I think that they'll be equipped to slow Maryland down a little bit, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think Maryland will find a way to get it done on the road. Again, a desperate team after losing 4 games out of their last, 5 there. I think they find a way to go on the road and beat Nebraska. So out of Nebraska and Illinois, I think they probably split those 2 games. Maybe it goes the other way, but this is just how I'm predicting it. And then you get Michigan on November the 18th at home. And just like with Penn State, this is just a bad matchup. You're going up against a good Michigan defense, a Michigan team that's probably going to be the best run team in all of college football. So that does not bode well for Maryland. I don't think this game will be close. I think Michigan wins easily, and that drops Maryland down to 6-5. Then you get Rutgers on the 25th on the road. I don't expect an easy win here for Maryland. I'm not super high on Rutgers, but it's just one of those games. End of the season, you're playing on the road. Who knows about the weather? Maybe there's snow. I could see some things happening like that to where Maryland struggles and potentially even gets upset in this game. But I think they're just clearly the better team, so I'm not going to pick them to lose. I think they will find a way to get it done here and go on the road and beat Rutgers. So I've got them finishing 7-5. I think that's, I think on the low end here, I think that's probably the worst case scenario. Maybe you could give them these 5 losses and then a loss to Nebraska, and they drop to 6-6. But I think 7-5 is probably about the worst case scenario. I think they're more likely to go 8-4 than 6-6, just because their schedule is very favorable. And again, if they could, let's say, beat Illinois at home, or even beat Michigan State, who may not be good at all, 8-4 is definitely possible. So I'm on the low end here. Again, 8-4, 7-5 is kind of what I was thinking about this team, but I'm gonna wind up at 7-5. That's my prediction for Maryland. I would love to get your thoughts. Give me your predictions on Maryland and what their record will be down in the comments below.